There's like the altruistic good part of me that's like I really truly love helping people get into houses and helping them get connected with financing solutions that put them in the best position possible. And then there's the second part of me that's like really competitive, and I love the chase, and I love growing something, and I love closing more next month than I closed this month. And I love the goal of doubling my production every year for the first 3 years of my business. A goal that I set for myself is to double my production in total closed volume every year for the first maybe 3 or 4 years. 2026, the goal is twice as much as 2025. And then beyond that, eventually I want to grow a team. I truly think a rising tide lifts all boats. So to have other people that can be cooperative and encouraging to one another to better serve our clients and ultimately to buy up more and more of the market share in this area, I definitely think that's on the cards within the next 2 or 3 years.
To the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who's been an entrepreneur since he was 8 years old with a lawn service that he started with his older brother. And now that he's in the mortgage business, he continues to really tap into that entrepreneurial spirit to grow a thoughtfully curated referral network built on partnership and really helping others win. A true rising star in the St. Louis area, Benjamin VandenBrink. Welcome to the Lowdown.
Hey, Connor, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely, man. Well, it's great to have you on. Always look forward to, talking with people who are making an impact in their market, building great relationships, and really doing some special things, man. And I touched on this earlier just in the introduction, but you've been an entrepreneur since a very young age, and this business is designed for those with the entrepreneurial spirit. I even got licensed before you were finished with college. So I'm just like, if you don't mind just sort of sharing, because it's a very unique story, like tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you kind of arrived at the mortgage business.
Yeah, certainly. Like you said, I got started being an entrepreneur from a young age. I don't know if it was 8, but probably 9 or 10, I was pushing the lawnmower up and down the block. That evolved into eventually what was a full-fledged, lawn care and landscaping service. I did that throughout high school and the first half of college. During college, I had 75 accounts that I would take care of on a weekly basis. Yeah, so I mean that taught me probably more about mortgages than a degree in finance and a master's degree in finance. The lessons I learned from growing a business, learning how to generate new clients, learning how to take good care of clients, a lot of things about customer service, and then just the entrepreneurial mindset of being able to set a goal and then go attain that goal and the reward that brought me. I think it really made me passionate about growth and kind of pursuing the hunt that we get to do as entrepreneurs. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got started in being an entrepreneur. Yeah, and then that segued into a career in mortgage lending because I went to college and got a degree in finance. And I'd always been interested in real estate, but I knew that with my background in finance or my education in finance, I'd be able to bring the most value from the mortgage lending side of things rather than maybe being an agent or approaching it from a different angle.
Yeah. And so I'm just curious, because I think back to when I was that age and getting started in those things, like those were times where you screwed up a lot. And so, you mentioned kind of learning customer service and the ropes in that regard and making, your clients happy and doing things. Like, what were some of the lessons that you learned along the way in that sort of shaped the way you view customer service today?
Yeah, definitely. I remember the first landscaping job that I ever messed up, So I had gotten started in the business. I had an old Buick Rendezvous, which is like the ugliest SUV, but I loved the car. It was a gift from my grandpa when I turned 16, probably worth about $2,000. So I would load up sod and retaining wall blocks. And I mean, the thing was sagging down to the ground. So I had loaded up my Buick Rendezvous with a couple thousand pounds of sod and retaining wall blocks. And I went and I sodded a whole backyard for somebody. and I was 17. I didn't know what I was doing. And I planted a bunch of sod in the shade. And sod is, it needs full sun to grow. And so within 3 weeks, the grass was just dead. And I had no clue what I was doing. So I way undercharged for the job. 3 weeks later, the grass is dead. And it's like, what do you do in that scenario? And thankfully, I had enough wisdom from my dad at that point, who was helping me grow the business. And I just decided I got to make this right. So I went and bought a bunch of new shade type grass, and I went back and I dug up all the old sod that had died, and I put down new grass that was gonna grow there. I lost money hand over foot on that job, but I learned to go back and make things right when you make a mistake. And that's no different in any job, but also in mortgages. Ultimately we have to keep our focus on the client and their experience and what's best for them. And ultimately, I think treating people right and doing what's best for the client is how we grow our business the best, because that's how we earn people's trust and get referrals, because nobody wants to refer somebody that they didn't have a good experience with, or who didn't make something right when they messed it up.
Yeah. And so you got into the business, and this is a path that I see a lot of really talented originators take. And I don't know how intentional it was at the time, or if it was just sort of the way things happened, but you were fortunate enough to start working really with a mentor who, has a high producing environment. You're exposed to a lot of things early and often that not every originator gets an opportunity to take part in. How has that environment really kind of influenced your standards and expectations for yourself as you grow your business?
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I was really lucky to have great mentorship right off the bat. And before I decided to get my license and start working, I interviewed with a couple different people, and I got connected with Chris Lubers at Delmar Mortgage, who agreed to mentor me. And Chris is high producer, super energetic, incredible at sales, and so that's really where I learned most of what I know about mortgages was from him. And yeah, I mean, being in that environment where you get to look at somebody who's in the position that you ultimately want to be in. And it wasn't just Chris who was in that position in my office. It was 2, 3, 4 other loan officers who are producing $30 to $40 million a year. And there's just not an opportunity to go in and be mediocre in that environment when you're surrounded by people who are doing great things. So yeah, getting in the industry, I looked at who was in the position where I wanted to be. And I tried to put myself as close to those guys as I could, so I could see how they operate and emulate that the best way I could.
Yeah, man, that's such a great lesson for anyone who's listening to hear. It's, there's so many options out there of places that you could work. When you can get into an environment where the standard is set high, where the bar is already high, if that's the standard you want, not everybody wants it, right? There's a level of work ethic and everything that comes involved with doing 30, 40, 50 million a year and above, right? But if that's what you want, the best way to get there is to get in that environment, see what the people that are already doing it do, learn the lessons that they learn. Trying to go about it on your own, especially in the mortgage industry that doesn't do a fabulous job of bringing people up on their own. You really need to be around someone who's doing the job. You'll learn a lot faster. Not that you couldn't learn it yourself, but you'll learn it a lot faster. So as you've been growing your business, you've been in this high, producing environment, been around a lot of really great people. You've helped a lot of people. As you think and reflect on some of the folks that you've helped into homes, is there a particular story that really resonates with you and still stands out?
Yeah. I've had a lot of different scenarios where I've looked back and felt pretty lucky to have been a part of people's story. One that comes to mind and that I kind of always fall back on, though, is a client who they had always wanted to own a home, and they were a little bit older. They were probably 60 years old and hadn't had an opportunity to purchase a home yet. And they had some pretty dinged up credit. They had a scenario that, life circumstance happened, and they accumulated some debt and missed some payments on things. And so their credit score made it such that they had been denied a couple different places before. And at the point, I connected with the borrower and we resonated with one another. And I just decided I'm going to do what it takes to get this one across the finish line. So we worked together for a couple months to get them in a position where they could qualify. And about halfway through the transaction, it was just a simple doc request email that I think my processor might have sent out. And I remember she responded to that email and she said, Benjamin, I just want to thank you so much for not thinking less of me because of my credit situation. I've never been talked to so kindly before, and I've had a lot of people judge me because of where I'm at financially. And looking back at that closing, it was far from the highest loan amount that I've closed, but probably one of the most meaningful ones still to this day.
Man, what a story, man. Because like there is that human element. There's a lot of vulnerability in buying a house. That you've got to show everything about your and so much you can learn about someone through their finances, right? But I think there are some people out there, and we could talk about all the misconceptions for days that people have in their mind about the things they believe to be true, them from being able to own a home that turn out not to be true. There might be a way for them, but there's a lot of insecurities that hold people back from even trying to take that step. And so to step in and be someone who, really takes the time to listen and doesn't, make them feel any less, right? I mean, that's huge, man. So kudos to you on that. And so as you've been growing, and we talked about this a little bit as we prepared, a couple of weeks ago, just kind of, talking about being on this together. You mentioned something about streamlining communication in the business and really like paying close attention to what is the processes and making things efficient. How has like simplifying process helped the clients feel more confident in you, and it's helped kind of with the whole journey of things?
Yeah, definitely. So processes and efficiency is something that I'm super, super big on. And that's been instilled in me by those guys who I'm in the environment with, who I've learned from, Chris and other mentors within the office setting. Because ultimately, when our processes operate the most efficiently, we as loan officers have more time to go generate new business and to provide more value to our referral partners. And our clients get a better experience because the process is more efficient. They have less time, less confusion around what's required of them. Yeah. So when I got started I was using a loan officer's assistant. The loan officer's assistant was helping me do certain, kind of little things. Like if I had a doc request that needed to go out, she could put those together for me. And then she'd help me, do some minor things with pre-approvals. Then we get an accepted contract on a file, and we move the file into processing. And then all of a sudden there's a second person that enters, and then it's, this is my processor, and the client feels like they're getting passed off from my working with the loan officer. Okay, now I get a doc request from the loan officer's assistant, go under contract. Now there's a processor reaching out to me. Okay, I've got 3 or 4 different names and emails that are giving me messages throughout the transaction. So we just kind of looked at that, and we said to ourselves, how can we make this better? And so we integrated the role of the loan officer's assistant and the processor into the same seat. So my processor now is my loan officer's assistant, and she works with my borrowers from the time of application all the way until closing. And that's the only other person the client will communicate with throughout the transaction other than me. So they don't get passed off to 2 separate people. And just from a efficiency standpoint on my side, I have 1 person that I need to talk to about my files, not 2 anymore. So communication's better, efficiency is better. I get to spend more time with my clients talking about big picture items and not chasing down bank statements.
Yeah. And so less telephone, third party getting the message and things getting confused. Yeah, that's smart. And I'm glad you got a talented person that can handle all that too.
Yeah, she's great. I couldn't do my job without her. Her name's Sarah. Just a shout out to Sarah. Sarah's fantastic. She works harder than anybody else in our company, I think. So Sarah's awesome, fantastic. Yeah.
So you mentioned kind of in that comment though about the referral partners, and that's the other half of the business, right? You help people get homes, but a lot of times you wouldn't know who those people were if it wasn't for the agent that made the introduction, or that you weren't able to make an introduction to an agent in some way. And so I know you kind of take a let me help you grow your business approach to those relationships. Like, what does that look like in practice for you? What are some of the things that you're doing to help your agents really grow their business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a huge part of my job, right, is to make sure that the people who refer me business are better off because of it. Not just because their clients get a great experience, but also because we're actually helping them do things to generate more buyer leads. And that looks like a lot of different things. It looks like our marketing department being available to them 24/7 for anything that they need. We've got a dedicated marketing coordinator that works with me and 3 or 4 other loan officers. So whether that be simple things like buyer's guides or listing flyers or just sold graphics or every door direct mailing flyers that we'll automatically send out for them after a file's closed. Or it's things like, if you want to buy a Zillow zip code with me, I'm always willing to spend money if that helps you grow your business. But ultimately, I have conversations with my agents around what exactly do you need. If they're not somebody that wants to work with Zillow leads, it wouldn't make sense to go say, hey, let's go spend $1,000 in your zip code together. Obviously, that's not going to do anything to them to benefit them. But yeah, it looks like being available to help do things for them to help grow their business outside of just pre-approvals and smooth processes for their mortgages.
Yeah. And so how do you go about meeting new referral partners? Because, I mean, you're still relatively newer to the business, growing your book of business. How are you going about making new relationships?
Yeah, I try to find agents who are in my community or in my network that are already 1 or 2 degrees of separation away from me, whether that be from another realtor that I'm already working with or a mutual friend that we have in common. Any really shared interest is a great way to connect with somebody. That way it just doesn't feel like I'm calling them up out of the blue and asking for their business without, a foot in the door at least. So just opening those conversations with a warm conversation that's where we already know each other before I just call them out of the blue.
Yeah, that's smart. So now that you've been doing this and clearly having some success, like what do you love about the job itself and what keeps you motivated to keep going?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things. There's like the altruistic good part of me that's like I really truly love helping people get into houses and helping them get connected with financing solutions that put them in the best position possible. And then there's the second part of me that's like really competitive and I love the chase and I love growing something and I love closing more next month than I closed this month. And I love the goal of doubling my production every year for the first 3 years of my business. And I get a lot of reward from that element as well,
Yeah.
A little more
Does that
selfish.
stem from like your background as an athlete? I mean, I know you were a runner in college, right?
Yeah. I was a cross country and a track runner in college, played a lot of sports in high school. But yeah, I'm a very competitive person. So whether I'm competing against myself or we have a sales competition going on at the company, I'm somebody who definitely wants to win.
Look out for you if we ever play a game of Monopoly.
Okay.
I've been known to flip a few Monopoly boards. So, but that's amazing, man. I mean, it's I think this job does require that element of being competitive and really, as you put it, just being better than your best and always trying to take one step forward. It doesn't necessarily mean having to compete with others. There's enough competition going on here and here that, you can always take a step forward with, the next month and just keep, competing against the best version of you. So what's next for you? I mean, as you think about the next 3-5 years and the skills that it will take to be successful and the things that you think are going to be essentials for loan officers, like what does the next chapter look like for you?
That's a great question. And as I'm drawn towards the end of 2025, I've been thinking about what that means for 2026 and beyond. I mentioned it before, but a goal that I set for myself is to double my production in total closed volume every year for the first maybe 3 or 4 years. There gets to be a point where the more you close, the harder it is to double it, right?
Exactly.
For 2026, the goal is twice as much as 2025. And then beyond that, eventually I want to grow a team. I'd like to bring on some loan officers that work alongside me. It's something that, I truly think a rising tide lifts all boats. So to have other people that can be cooperative and encouraging to one another, to better serve our clients and ultimately to buy up more and more of the market share in this area, I definitely think that's on the cards within the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. So does that come from like an altruistic place? Is that a competitive place? You mentioned like taking over the market and having some market dominance, but like, not everybody wants to grow a team. Some people are just like, I don't have to teach somebody else how to do this. I want to be, a lone wolf and just dominate on my own. Like where does that desire to build a team come from?
It's competitive ultimately. I have a lot of respect for other loan officers that I compete with. I think there are a lot of people in St. Louis, they're doing really, really cool things. But ultimately, I want all that business for my company. I want it for my production volume, for my agents. So while I want the best for you, I also I want to win and I want to make the team that's full of the winners.
Yeah.
And I think that probably comes more from a competitive place than it does an altruistic one.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, man. Like, it's a commission only job, right? I
Right.
mean, you can only give away so much. You got
Somebody's got to close the most loans,
Yeah, yeah, there can only be no one number one. So as we wrap up, man, like if there's another young loan officer out there listening, or someone who maybe has been doing this a while, but they're at that place of I'm ready to grow. I want to take that step forward. Like, what would be the best advice that you could give them?
Focus on bringing the most value that you can to every conversation, to every transaction. If you lead with value and lead with how you can benefit the client, how you can benefit the referral partner, people are going to notice that and they're going to want to keep sending you more business. People are going to learn to trust you. Um, and ultimately, your business is going to grow as a result of that.
Yeah,
That
awesome,
and
man.
don't be afraid to go for it.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, man. There is if there I need to someday break down like the 10 tenets of the top producers that I've talked to on this show, but one theme that continues to come up is just take action, right? Just go for it, do the thing. you know Top producers, successful people, they take action fast and they give it time. And so there's a lot of shiny objects out there, so there's a lot of chasing that happens and a lot of giving up really early. But I think if you really want to be successful, it's about making that decision, sticking with it for 90, 180 days, really making sure that it takes hold and you can assess whether or not it was successful, and then deciding if it's something you want to keep. But it all starts with taking action. There's so many of you listening that might be sitting there going, man, if only. And all it takes is for you to just do it. So love that call out, and I really appreciate all the insight that you've brought to the lowdown, man. It's been great talking with you, Benjamin. I wish you nothing but the best.
Hey, well, I really appreciate it, Connor. Appreciate the opportunity, and great to get to know you a little bit better today, and spend some time talking about our business.
Absolutely, man. I'll keep an eye on you. You have a good one.
Awesome. Thanks, Connor.